Hi, everyone. You are now tuning in to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. We present our final discussion with our special guest today, who is a woman of many talents, such as screenwriter, producer, segment producer, and executive producer, Jenna Frank. We hope you enjoy part 2 of our discussion. What is your favorite genre of content to develop? Do you feel like you lean more to dramas, or is there an action adventure script we have not heard of that you definitely want to do, or a horror film or something?
So in terms of, I'll give you a couple answers here. In terms of development, I'm pretty open to any genre of project. So if someone sends me a script, I don't really care if it's a rom-com. I don't care if it's a thriller. Like, I'll read it. It's really just like, is it a good script? Is it a good story? So on the development side and like producer side, definitely that. Writing, I really always thought that I would be like a drama writer. I think like people probably underestimate maybe a little bit how I have a very sensitive soul. And so I think like people maybe underestimate that a little bit, because I like a lot of people do know me as just the person that like gets stuff done. And so I think that they don't really always realize that like I have a very soft heart. And my therapist says that that's okay, but that's just the way it is.
Your therapist is like, yes, she keeps mentioning me. Yes.
I mean, she gets a lot of my money, so she but yeah, I think, in terms of writing, I always kind of thought that I would write more in kind of the drama lane. But, lately I just recently took on a book adaptation that's like a true crime, like thriller. I'm, working on a rom-com right now. My show, The Audacious Show, is like has this like kind of fantastical element to it, but then it explores different genres within that. So every episode is a different genre.
Yes.
And then, I actually thought this other series I'd been working on would be the first to go. And it's a sitcom. It's a very network friendly, 28 to 30 minute sitcom series. And that was a genre that like I just truly didn't think that I was gonna be good at. Even though I think I'm really funny. I just didn't know that was gonna like
please don't let this be about writing songs again, guys.
Yeah, I was like, I think I have a good sense of humor, but I don't know if that translates to sitcoms. But it's actually so fun, and I found so much joy in it because it does feel like a little bit lighter, and it's like an interesting challenge to bring depth to a sitcom character when so much of like what's happening is just like either absolutely ridiculous or just like an over exaggeration maybe of how it is in real life, but still trying to find like those grounding elements within each of the characters has been like a really fun challenge for me. So that's a genre I'm like really enjoying exploring a little bit.
I love that.
Dream.
Huh?
Can I tell you my dream scenario?
What is your dream? Of
Which
course.
actually this may
Jenna
not
Frank.
surprise you, because we've talked about this person before on social media together. But my dream scenario would be to be in a writer's room with Brett Goldstein. From Ted Lasso, and then he also has the show Shrinking. And I just think that like
you
both
mentioned
of
that.
those shows, they have such a unique slant to them. Like Shrinking is a show that's entirely about mental health. It's incredibly dramatic and heartfelt and has so much depth to it, but it's also hilarious. And I don't know, I just find that style just so intriguing. And so yeah, that's like on my manifestation board, is to be in a writer's room with Brett Goldstein.
Listen, Brett, if you are listening to this, Jenna Frank wants to join in. She is ready. You either bring on Shrinkage, Ted Lasso, whatever you want to do. But I tell people all the time, you never know who's going to be listening to this.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, hey, I would love to work with Christopher Nolan. I was like, Christopher Nolan, shout out to you. Holler at this person, because, we're talking to cast and crew about their filmmaking process. And it's not something that people really spotlight so much of the crew. right?
Yeah.
And breaking it down. And there's people that want to work with other people. So
Yeah.
listen, Brett, get her in the writer's room. She's ready.
Brett, I would also do your podcast, Films to Be Buried With. Just call me.
Call. You are too funny. But she did mine first. So I am here with Jenna Frank, executive producer, and writer. You are listening to Vonti Talks with Filmmakers. She just had her whole who she'd love to work with, but I would ask you next, who has been a mentor for you in this industry? Either going
Yeah.
back to the music festival when you first started, that transition into filmmaking and onward. I know for me, I have about 4 of them, and they're wonderful people, all throughout, and they just help me in different aspects of what I'm trying to do. But it took me a long time to realize that I needed that help. Not that
No,
I
I
was
was just gonna
perfect,
say,
not that I was perfect, but you know what I mean. It's like
yeah,
you don't, and especially as a minority, it's very hard.
yeah,
It's very hard. These doors are not open as much. It's slowly cracking open, so to even get some mentors or people willing that are in a higher level or position to actually work with you.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's definitely a challenge. There's a lot of challenges. I've been really fortunate. I was gonna say, same as you. I don't really know that there's one particular person that I could pinpoint. There's probably about 5 people, at different stages that I've been in. When I started out doing the live events, like I mentioned, that was like an internship through college. So the person that I was interning with really kind of taught me the ropes there. And I think I think so much of, what I've learned from people. I've had some really great people who have just really helped and really guided me and really kind of like showed me the ropes in different spaces.
give
I've
them a
also
shout out. Give them a shout
I've
out.
also had a lot of people that the biggest thing I've learned from them is like, oh, I don't want to do that, or I am never going to act like that. I'm not going to behave like that person. So I think it's a little bit of both. And, there's been people that have really kind of guided me in a positive light. And then
Yeah.
there's been people that it's like, nope,
That you
I'm
would
not gonna do
never
it.
emulate. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just to name a couple of people,
The positive
really
ones. You
kind of
don't have to
hurt.
name the negative. We don't want nobody.
No, I won't name the negatives.
Yeah, we don't want
Stay on
nobody
the
emailing you. I can't believe you said that.
Um,
These are the
but
positive
yeah,
mentors.
there was a woman, there is a woman named Penny Hunter, who I met when I was still living in Australia. And she has been kind of more of like a life mentor to me. That's obviously spilled over into career, but she's just incredibly wise. She lives in Colorado, her and her family. And so I would often go out to Colorado like a couple of times a year just to kind of unplug from the craziness of LA. They have alpacas and like a hammock in their backyard. So I just go and veg
I would
out and
be
unplug
gone.
and just, hang out, go on hikes, eat good food. She makes like the best food, like stews and homemade breads and all of this stuff. And so, yeah, she's been a huge part of my life. And the interesting thing is that when I met her in Australia, it was because her son was speaking at a conference that I was running
Oh, that's
from a
nice.
production standpoint. And her son was quite young at the time, I think probably like 15 or 16.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now he and I actually work together. So the film that you and I worked on together, he's actually the initial person that received that script and then gave it to me, and then he and I developed it together. So it's just interesting again how those relationships come full circle. And again, like I was saying before, I think it's so much of just like how you carry yourself and how you bring integrity into the work that you're doing, which is like for me just like the absolute pivotal like cornerstone foundation that is non-negotiable in everything I'm working on.
Absolutely.
Aside from her, there's a producer that I worked with on a pilot series that I worked on, which was like a competition show, and his name's Jim Cantiello. And he kind of had one of those careers too, where it was like he was on camera for a really long time and hosted for like MTV and all these different things. And then he moved into the production side, and he's done like digital production, but he's also done, television, and really kind of in that like live TV broadcast space. So when it comes to like American Idol and I do all of the live TV for the award shows, the entire season, Oscars, Grammys, Emmys, everything.
We're
Uh,
going to be getting into that, guys, in a few minutes, but go ahead
yes.
with that.
I work with Jim on that. So again,
Yeah.
that was an experience where we worked together on one project, and then, it was several years later that he had this other thing come up, and he was like, "Are you interested?" But he is just so on top of it. Like, when I tell you, he like lives, eats, and breathes whatever show he's working on. He knows it inside and out. He
Love
knows
that.
every watch out. He knows everything that needs to be flagged to the network. He knows every talent that's passing through, like down to the minute of where stuff's going to be happening. He's
I
just
love that.
he's so prepared, and then also just so able to flex in a given moment where something's not going the way we thought it would, and just keep it so cool and calm and collected.
I love
So I've
that.
learned so much from him as well. In terms of writing and development, I would probably say Pierre Romain, who you also know. He's just been such a huge guide for me there. I think even the project you and I worked on together, just being able to kind of discuss script notes with him and like get additional feedback from the network and all of that, just really kind of changed the way that I write, because it kind of made me think, I already kind of view writing through a producer and actor lens when I'm
Yes.
writing. But it just added an additional layer of just kind of, there are times where you sit down and write and it's totally just out of emotion and it's heartfelt and it's getting something on paper. But then you have to go back and make sure it actually works from a practical standpoint. And so I think, working with him has really kind of helped me reframe the way that I write. And I think one of the coolest parts about being a creative, which is something I took from when I was doing the music thing, is I think a lot of times creatives like try to like not be in a box that like their creativity just kind of like runs rampant and it's not really like directed towards anything.
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned when you're doing creativity professionally, one of the skill sets that you have to have as a creative is to be able to like rein it in, whether that means like holding something with an open hand that you can take people's notes and people's feedback. Because I know there are writers that like they have really cool stories, but they're never going to get developed because they're so unwilling to like flex on
The
things,
constructive feedback. And
Um,
speaking of Pierre, he's a really humble and nice guy. I really
yes.
enjoyed working with him. It was like,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
think another like huge important skill set for creatives who are doing it professionally is to be able to like hone your craft to the point where you can do it on a timeline. Because I think a lot of people hear creativity and they're like, oh, I'll like get to it when I get to it. But that's not how it works, whether you're like a painter, a musician, whatever, like
Yes,
you
no.
have deadlines that you have to meet. And so, even for us, like I've had projects where I've literally been on set and they're like, we have to rewrite this whole scene. And I know in the back of my mind, that means I have to rewrite this scene. I have to get it approved by the people on the ground. I have to get it final approval from the studio or the network or whatever. And then like get those changes out to the team. And most times that's happening for a scene that you're filming like that day or the next day or whatever. And so,
Yes.
you have to be able to like,
Manage your time. Time
manage
management.
time. But for me, it's like, honing my craft and making sure that like whatever setting I'm going into where I know that creativity is going to be required of me, that I'm like coming into that with an already full cup. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but just like managing my own time, like not even within the creative space, but like my own time and my own mindset and my own burnout, and like making sure that when I'm entering those creative settings that I've like honed my craft enough where the technical side of it comes really naturally and quickly, so that I can just like focus and like turn something out, even if it's not on my ideal timeline.
And I know for me, I'm not one of those people that just churn out writing content just to churn it out sometimes. Like I have to be really invested in it. And I feel, I can understand what you're meaning about like a scene or something that you're revising it, right?
Yeah.
But I never sit down and write a whole script unless it speaks to me.
Yeah.
And the ones that speak to me is like waking me up in the middle of the night being like dialogue happening. And you're like,
right.
Let me write this down because I'm not going to remember in the morning, or I'm like,
I do my best writing in the car.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think like because of the musician thing, so I'll like, God, it's gonna be so bad whenever I have like it's bad when I have other people in the car. I don't do this when I have other people in the car. But I was just thinking the other day, I was like,
you're like
man,
talking to yourself.
like I look like a crazy person because I will listen to like if a song is like really speaking to me, because I'm also thinking about like a project I'm working on or whatever, and then this song comes on and I'm like, oh my God, this is like exactly that. I will listen to that song, Bonti, on repeat until every like ounce of dialogue is out of my brain. So then there I am like driving down the 405 or like sitting still on the 405 in rush hour traffic with the same song on repeat. But I'm like in my head, like, okay, like now I can visualize this person like getting out of bed and walking across the room. And then this is what they would say when they're over there. And then the other person's probably going to respond like this. I have the entire thing playing out in my head while I'm listening to a song, and probably
there's some hot guy that's like looking over at you. Yeah, there's some fine guy looking over at you, and you're like, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing
like that girl is like blaring a Taylor Swift song, crying in her car and talking to herself. What is wrong with her?
See, mine is, you know what my bad habit is? If I find a movie that I absolutely love, you do not want to watch it with me. Because an hour and a half movie will go for 3.5 hours. I am at home rewinding it. I'm memorizing the scene, not really the quote, but I'm looking at like the structure and how they edited it and all of that stuff. What was the dialogue? How did it flow in? Not to like ruin the movie, but it's like, it doesn't happen often where scenes are so jaw dropping now.
Yeah.
That like it just hits you like a ton of bricks, right? Mm-hmm. And because I love action adventure, there's sequences that I'm just like, oh my God, how did they do that?
Yeah.
That is freaking amazing. And I would just rewind. Thank God I live alone, because I'm telling you, they would hate me. Even at the movie theater, I'm like, oh my gosh, and the people are like, if you don't shut up. But that just shows your passion, right? Yeah. And you find that creativity anywhere. And thankfully it is in the car. At least you're not in Starbucks losing it.
That's true. I do yell at my TV sometimes at home too. Like, I can't remember the lot. It was probably honestly like a Ted Lasso, like the end of Ted Lasso or something. I was like, you just brought back in all of these things. I was like freaking out, and
you're like, rewind.
Like, what is wrong with this woman? Like,
how am I just tell them, I'm like, no, we can't watch that. I've been saving that one for myself. You know what I mean? Like if somebody comes over, like, oh girl, let's watch the new movie. No, I can't watch.
You don't want to watch that with me.
No. I'll have to, like, you know what I mean? I'll be like, we'll watch it next time, because I'm going to watch it by myself and keep going over and over again. But really quickly, and let's take a quick break real quick. Guys, we're here with Jenna Frank, and you are listening to Vonti Talks with Filmmakers. We will be right back. And now a word from one of our sponsors. After starting my podcast, I needed to hire the pros to market the content. Are you looking for digital success? Look no further. World Boss HQ is your strategic partner. Their experts turn your vision into a digital masterpiece. From stunning websites to powerful marketing, they've got you covered. Startups or established businesses, they are your one-stop solution. Visit worldbosshq.com. That is WORLDBOSSHQ.com. WorldBossHQ.com and unleash your potential today. World Boss HQ Digital Marketing. Your online empire awaits. We are excited to bring you this world exclusive teaser from Bad Rabbit Pictures and Movie Pods. They are presented Age of Prophecy, a sci-fi fantasy podcast done in the style of the radio dramas of yesteryear. Coming soon to all streaming platforms. Visit www.moviepods.com or www.anoukchronicles.com for all the release dates. You won't want to miss this one. Your myths were born from our history. Let's check it out.
Life. A vile, messy sequence of events before we die. All designed for something beyond us. It has to be. Or else, what's the point? You don't know me, but I know you. I am responsible for your triumphs and miseries. I am Zira Enlilzor, and to truly understand your own story, you must know mine. Your myths were born from my history.
Hi there, and welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. All right, welcome back, you guys. I'm really excited. Like I mentioned, we're here with Jenna. She has been talking about her writing process and everything, but I did want to pivot to give you the opportunity to talk about these award shows. So do you remember Troy Hawkins that we work with, the makeup artist?
Mm-hmm.
So Troy had did the VMAs the other day.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so awesome. And I'm like, when you mention award show, I'm like, it's such a small world. And I think that's very important for people to understand. There's like a small, not a small amount, but just understand being on your best behavior, doing things in an excellent way. People are going to remember you. They're going to want to be around you and all of those things. And you're going to run across people that you know. So speaking of that, because me and Troy talk almost every day. I love that girl. Plus, she's in the Boogie Down Bronx. I'm from Brooklyn. We're always going to be at each other's throat. It is. It is what it is. It's borough wars. That's what we call it. But talk to me more about these award shows. Like, you know, because that's a whole other beast. Aside from like unscripted reality and, you know, music shows and stuff, how did you get into the award stuff?
Yeah, so that gig came about again through Jim Cantiello. So he is one of the co-EPs for the company that I work with for the award shows. And so he brought me into that. So I'm like the lead segment producer for all of the major shows that are televised. So the Emmys, Grammys, Oscars, usually People's Choice Awards, some years Golden Globe, some years SAG just depends on where they're sitting network wise or television wise that year. But it basically requires me watching as many of the nominated series as possible and as many of the nominated films as possible, listening to as much of the music as possible. So, you know, I would say everyone that works on that show with me and the other people 10 times more knowledgeable than I am, but we are like pop culture experts. Like we spend so much time watching every show, thinking about how it's connected to another show, which actors are like on multiple things that we can talk about that season. And so we're just like constantly like, we're like all up in every pop culture news thing that we can. We're watching all the shows. We know all of the tea. You know, a lot of what we're writing is for one of the entertainment networks. So we're very much in like the celeb, I hate calling it gossip, but just like celeb lifestyle world.
Girl, let
Which
me
is
tell
a
you,
lot of,
you can never say too much gossip. I look at TMZ website every morning in media takeout. It's like I'm either doing it in the morning or I'm doing it at night just to find out what the heck happened.
you gotta know what's going
You
on.
gotta know. You have to know.
You
It's
got
like
to
I
know
don't know what
where
it
in the
is.
world Andrew Garfield is. You got to know where in the world. Yeah. You just,
And it's so funny too because my friends would be like, "Boss, you didn't hear about that." I don't watch regular news
yeah.
because coming from a place like Brooklyn in the 90s and just the way that I grew up, I just eventually I have to stop listening to the violence, right?
Yeah.
About like this person got robbed, that person got raped around the corner, you know. So I just for many years I haven't, and I tell my friends if something big happens, call me because I'm
Yeah.
not gonna know, y'all. If they say it's the end of the world and World War III is breaking out, just text me or something. Let me know it's going down because I am in a whole.
But you will know who Taylor Swift went on a date with recently because you're looking at TMZ.
Exactly. And then all the drama. Girl, don't get me started. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
break down for the audience what a segment producer actually, you know, what that entails, because that's a whole nother position, right?
Yeah. So it varies season to season. Um, and then like preseason or like, you know, pre-actual award show day looks a lot different than the day of the show. So what I'm often doing is like putting beat sheets together for our scripts of, you know, what we want to talk about in each segment. So the entire show, we're usually doing like a pre-show before the awards, and that's anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes usually, which is a lot of content to write. There's a lot of scripting to write. And so we'll
Is
break
that like you mean talent walking the red carpet? Like really break it down for somebody
that's
that
pre even the red carpet. So it's usually like a panel of hosts that are kind of talking about the nominees for that
yeah.
year, like what we should be looking out for. Who do you think the underdogs are? Like, you know, Olivia Rodrigo, do you think she's going to win Best New Artist? Like, kind of just have all of those discussions. So, again, like, it's my responsibility and the team's responsibility. And again, like, the other guys on the team are like so much better at it than me, even of just being on top of everything that's happening. And you know what's going to make the best story. And what's been cool for me is like I have been able to kind of help bring out some of those like more diverse or like underdog stories. You know, we're all working the year that Squid Game was nominated, and so that was really great for me to be able to talk about this amazing Korean talent and like the first series that's in Korean to be nominated for an Emmy, like just all of the like foreign language show, and just being able to kind of like talk about and give space to those types of conversations on like a live television setting is just really cool. So yeah, I spend a lot of the pre-show writing that. I also
That's nice.
write the interview questions that are asked on the red carpet.
Nice.
Then on the actual day of the show, I'm typically producing that pre-show that I was talking about. So working with our panel hosts and producing them and kind of talking through what's going to happen. And, you know, obviously they have the whole script in a teleprompter. It's, you know, kind of like newscasty-ish, but with a more entertainment and like celeb talk slant. So I kind of produce them through that, which could be like, you know, I have a huge binder with the script in front of me and I just kind of flip through and like, okay, in this next act, we're going through, you know, this is where we're talking about like the dark horses for best picture nominees. So, you know, each of you need to have an example of who you think like could unexpectedly take this category. Or like, here are some names that we're talking about this segment. This is how you pronounce them. Like, don't forget
Do
to
not
write
screw.
it down
Oh my
phonetically
gosh.
for you, like all of those types of things. And then during the red carpet show, I move into more of a field producer role because we're live on air. So I have, the director and the showrunners talking to me in my ear, like, hey, this is who we're spotting coming down the carpet. Like Lady Gaga's coming, like, let's try to snag her for an interview. So then I'm also holding like all the interview questions that I wrote to give to our on camera host and kind of talking through like, and every show is different because stuff is live. So for example, with the Grammys, they have the pre-ceremony that happens before the live show. So I have to be like listening to my team of what's happening in the pre-ceremony, even though we're already live on the red carpet, because we could have, oh, this artist is nominated for X, but by the time they get to us, they've already won or lost it. So you maybe don't want to like bring it up, or you might want to start the interview of like, you just won your first Grammy and like the night hasn't even really started yet, like what's next for you kind of thing. So it requires a lot of like just in the moment changes, being flexible, being able to like change, like rewrite stuff on the fly because you just don't know what's going to happen. And then the craziest part that people are always like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do that, is like while the actual ceremony is happening and people are winning awards, we are writing the after show script. So we're literally writing it while the show's happening so that we can talk about it as soon as the show ends. So we're like, okay, like Harry Styles just won album of the year. Was it album of the year or artist of the year or whatever? So we're like literally writing about that while he's winning it so that in like 10 minutes we can talk about it on live TV, which then means that as a producer during that live after show, I'm standing there with the on-air host, with my with the lead, with the supervising producer, and we're like talking them through like, okay, like this is what just happened, this is how we're going to talk about it. And then they're also like, the on-air hosts have such a huge job too, because the director's talking to them in their ear of like, hey, make sure you say this, or like, let's go to teleprompter, and like, okay, cut it off there, we're going to go to the screen, so it's a lot of moving parts. It takes a really solid team that really communicates well, it's really listening, but it's also just so much fun. It's the only time that I get to like produce in like full on formal wear, which is like a blessing and a curse, because I'm wearing like a floor length gown and heels and like,
and you're just like, I gotta get across
like sweating because I'm like running to fix something, and I have my headset and I have my script binder and like all the cards. So it's definitely, I look like a crazy person. I often also have a fanny pack with my formal dress, which looks super cool if you can picture that. So then I end up in the background of shots of like these beautiful celebrities, and then I'm like there with my fanny pack, like, hey,
swirling around, like, where are they? Where are they? But that reminds me of almost like broadcast news stations as well, because it's similar to that. Did you ever watch that show that was on HBO? I think it was Newsroom.
I didn't, but
okay, you would like.
I haven't watched the whole thing, but I've seen clips of it, and it does very much feel like that. It's a weird combination of like the stress, good stress, but stress and anxiety that I would feel from like American Idol or like another live show, combined with like the chaos of like a newsroom that's like getting breaking information by the second.
It seems like it's that twofold. It's like, and it's entertainment. So like you said, you got to make it like hip and pop culture, because there's like different demographics that are watching it as well, and they want you to be spot on. You can't be, like you said, 5 minutes late, or they didn't win and you do the flub of how was it to win, and you're like, no. Did you guys hear if he won? Okay, nobody mentioned it. Ask him about their outfit.
Exactly. That's like the default. What are you wearing tonight?
Yeah, exactly. What are you wearing tonight? Guys, we are listening in. You are listening to Vonti Talks with Filmmakers. We have Jenna Frank, who now I'm going to add to the list. Segment producer, executive producer, producer, and writer. But to get to another segment of it, because I know you keep saying you're psychiatrist as well, which is an excellent thing, but you are running your own team and everything. How do you know when it's too much work and you need to kind of put a cap on things?
Yeah.
I'd say maybe later circle back on that.
It took me a really long time to find the balance because I love what I do. And because I primarily, am working for myself and kind of taking projects as they come, I have had seasons where I'm like just saying yes to everything because I'm like, if I say no, like, what if I don't have enough money in 6 months? Like,
Yeah.
just all of that. And so I think, um, for a long time, I was saying yes to stuff and it was really fear-based and like, I'm gonna say yes to this because I'm worried about what will happen if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like points in your career, especially when you're starting out, where you do have to say yes to a lot of stuff. You
Oh
do
my
have to be
goodness.
willing to put in the absolutely bananas hours and like you just have to, it's just part of it. I hate to even say that because I don't know that it should be part of it. I love what some of the films were doing last award season, like Women Talking. I think it was that film. Yeah, they really made sure that like everyone on set, crew, cast, everyone was working incredibly reasonable hours so that people could go home to spend time with their families because it was really important to the director because she herself was a mother and like she just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to create that environment. And so I say that you do have to say yes to a lot of stuff almost like unfortunately because I don't know that that should be the case, but that is kind of the way that it is. It
And
is
other people have mentioned that as well. It's like it's a very freelance environment. It was I had Mike Spiller was on, like I mentioned before, with the executive producer director, and he was like, I asked him the question, like, when did you feel you went from aspiring to, professional filmmaker, right? And he goes, when he was working on the Mindy project. And I'm like, really? This guy's like dozens of dozens, but he had mentioned it was because he was at Universal for about 7 years working on projects, and it was almost felt like that full-time job of steady income
yeah.
versus like you mentioned, like somebody wants you to come do one episode, or somebody wants you to do these 10, or somebody's pulling you in for this, but it's not consistent,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, so yeah, I think yeah, I kind of went through that too. But it was about 2 or 3 years ago now. It hasn't been that long that I really kind of like left my full-time job and was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, like I need to do it.
Me and you
And
both, girl.
that
Solidarity.
was when again I kind of switched that mindset from being like fear-based of like, oh, if I don't say yes to this, like how am I going to buy groceries or whatever? And of course you have to be financially responsible too, but it was like more of a mindset shift for me. And I think for me too, like not to sound to get super spiritual, but to me there is like an element of faith to it as well, of like knowing like this is what I
I'm
am
supposed to be
not
doing.
only passionate about, but like feel like called to do or like
Yes.
purposed to do. So that means that I also have to then have a little bit of faith and trust in God, the universe, whatever you believe in,
Mhm.
that it is going to work out. And there it also requires a level of responsibility on your own part to know like, okay, I have this much money coming in this month, next month might not be like that, so I'm going to tighten up here. There is like
Yeah.
there's a level of logic and practicality to it as well. But just really kind of like, for me, it was again shifting from that fear mindset and really just like focusing more on like what types of projects do I really feel passionate about, because I
Mhm.
know um that's where I'm going to do my best work and that will come through. And I think, a great example of that is the Audacious series. Like, I didn't really think that that was going to be like the first thing that I had kind of done in that lane to go, just because it was so personal. I had other things that I felt like were way more network friendly, that were way more budget friendly, all of that.
Mhm.
But this project just really kind of like is the one that has the momentum right now, which is amazing.
It's so good.
But I think it's just a testament to kind of like, and I feel fortunate and privileged to be able to, you know, choose what I'm working on and choose where I'm putting my time in and who I'm working with and all of that.
And if no one has told you, we are very proud of you. I'm especially proud of you because it does take a lot to be fearless like that, to feel like someone is going to catch you when you fall. And like you said, having that belief and all of that, that you're going to be okay. And now,
Yeah.
if you fast forward now after getting rid of that job, over 2 years ago, you're about to have a whole show created by you, TV episodic or whatever, that is your true authentic self, right?
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
And I mean, I still work a lot, but I like to work a lot. So I think it's really just about, balance. And when I say I work a lot, like I typically have like multiple different projects going on at once. So for example, right now I have, an unscripted slate of shows that I'm pitching out. I am, working on this series that I wrote. I'm rewriting a couple of scripts. And then I also am, because of everything that was going on with the writer's strike, I also took a job focusing more back in digital marketing, which is kind of where I got my start when I first moved to LA. So, I kind of consistently have my hand in a lot of different things, which has just always been the way it is. So I think, it's up to each individual to kind of figure out where your capacity is and how much you can say yes to and how much you want to say yes to. But I really do think the biggest thing is like, listening to your own intuition of like what you want to say yes to, why you're saying yes to it. And for me too, like not every project I do benefits me personally. Like there are things that I lend my time to or resources to because I want to give someone else maybe the same opportunity that I had. And that I think goes back to what you were saying when you mentioned Troy, is like this industry actually isn't that big. And it is a community of people. And I think the more that you're kind of like able to lend a hand to people versus like stepping on people to get somewhere, it will really,
Now, an exciting message from our sponsors. When I decided to launch this podcast, I had the tools to find talent and market the show, but needed a skilled editor to bring it all to life. That's when I turned to Jacob Daly at redhawk.uk. His collaborative approach and swift revisions transformed my vision into reality. redhawk.uk, your one-stop solution for creative content services. Reach out to them. Now a word from another of our supporting sponsors, that is Realm IQ, a new AI consultancy started by film marketing veteran Kurt Doty, who has built an international team of AI mentors to help AI change management for your business. Go to www.curtdoty.co/Realm IQ. Smart people for smart adoption, creating smart worlds. Realm IQ. Book your AI workshop today. Adopt or perish. Hi there, and welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it's very hard. It's been this falsehood of, Hollywood's so cutthroat and this and that, and everyone's stabbing each other in the back. There's a community of people that have never done that.
Yeah.
And there's many of us out there that have never done that, never stepped on anybody's neck or whatever. But I did want to say, there's projects that I've actually turned down as well that I was passionate about. But I felt like if you needed me to write something and we're already arguing or debating back and forth about the story, it's like, you're coming to the screenwriter, trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
It goes both ways. And like the fact that, you get hired for stuff because people know you have a good reputation. They know you're going to do the job well. It's like the flip side of that too. Like you're going to continually choose to work with people that have a good reputation, that are going to get the job done for you, or that,
Yes.
and so I think it definitely goes both ways, even with my show, like I reached out to someone that you and I worked with previously, because I know what he brings to the table, and I know it will be great work.
And that is what it's all about. I'm really loving just even doing this podcast as well, because it's like I'm building up my own network. I know that I would pay it forward. Like the first project that gets green lit, I already have my list of people that I'm going to be calling, because I trust them enough that they're going to do what needs to be done. And I also appreciate all of you guys even coming on and have worked on major projects and all of that, and still being on something that hasn't even really not launched yet, because it has launched, but you know what I mean. There's times where people's egos are way out there, like I'm above doing something like that, when it's more like there's an opportunity for you to teach and help the future, right? So my last question to Jenna, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, one of the things that I like try to live by, it's kind of twofold, I guess, but it's just like one of my pastors growing up used to say this, but he was like, be kind, be encouraging, and look for lonely people. And that has like always really stuck with me, like in every aspect of life, whether it be work or personal or whatever. And then even beyond that, like something that I have really tried to do throughout my entire career is like, if I get invited to the table, like I try to say people's names who aren't there. Like if someone asks me, like a recommendation for someone, like, like invite other people to the table. And I try to do that like anytime I get a chance. And it's allowed me to build, such more diverse like crews, and like give people a chance behind the camera or whatever, in the makeup chair, whatever it might be, to just say people's names, people that do good work, like bring their name up in the room.
Bring their name. Exactly. Thank you. See, guys, listen, this is Vonti McCray as the host of Vonti Talks with Filmmakers. We got Jenna Frank here. This is why I love this girl. So true though. Like me and you have the same way of thinking, and we've gone so much further than some people that didn't do that. That was so worried about, I don't want to bring their name up because they might outshine me. It's not about that. It's not about the outshine, right? Because your lane is your lane. And what God has for you is going to be for you, regardless. Yep. So if you know someone is excellent,
what's for you won't miss you.
Yeah. Exactly. You're so funny. All right. So the last question for you, so we can get up out of here. Even though this is excellent, I'm going to have you back again once your show drops and you want to do like a post-mortem of season 1.
Great.
You're coming back. Or even when the Oscars, which I thought was cool, the Academy added, I think it's the Academy added those 2 categories for blockbuster movies in the stand-up comedy. So I was like, that's dope. Because a lot of times people do not respect the blockbusters. They're like, oh, this movie was corny. Oh, this, that, and the third. It was like a popcorn film and cheesiness. And I'm like, but sometimes you might need the cheesy.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have
it's still entertainment. It's entertainment.
Still entertainment.
It can take so many different avenues,
Listen, the fact that there's movies out there that have actually bought entire buildings that were about to be demolished and rigged that sucker to blow up with a helicopter in the background and the hero falling out of it, I think you got to respect that process.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you need the movie that makes you think for days about what just happened and changes your worldview. Sometimes you need the movie that's going to like make you bawl your eyes out and feel something you've never felt before. And then sometimes you need the movie that just makes you feel like a little bit of a badass. Like you can go out, you can beat the villains. You got this.
Thank you. I tell people all the time, and I've probably said it 1,000,001 times on the show, probably at least 4 of the episodes or more. My favorite anime right now is One Piece. I'm about 800 episodes in, and people always like, why are you watching that? And I'm like, listen, I've never seen a show that can produce so many villains that top each other, but also have like a message. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To kids, you can tell they're layering in messages like overcome this, don't be that way, you shouldn't treat people that way. It's like it's almost subconscious writing for the viewer, you know? And I'm like, this is dope. I don't know about the live action, haven't seen it yet. We'll see about it. I'm gonna save my thoughts to myself. But aside from that, last
Doing
question.
really well, and I've talked to a lot of anime fans who have approved of this particular live action version, saying that it's very close to the original.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch it. If it's
Really,
not close,
because Oda,
huh?
the creator, was really close to this.
Okay. How long is this that? Because anyway,
Anyways,
all I'm gonna say is
ask your last question.
what I'm gonna say is sometimes I don't know about the forced diversity that
Yeah.
goes so far away from the original. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
But the characters in the anime are the same ethnicity as they are in the. I think there's like one variation, but for the most
okay.
part, like Luffy in the. I only know this because I guess I can say this now because Strike is over, but I worked closely with the live action version
Okay,
of
good.
marketing stuff. But yeah, the casting is actually true to the
Okay.
anime series.
All right. That's all I cared about because I'm like, it's too many shows that are just like throwing in some tokens, like,
No, I
and I'm
get
just
it.
like, what are you doing?
It's such a weird space, right? Because you want like the representation, and you want the diversity, you want that visibility, but it also gets to a point where it feels like a commodity.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's what a lot of studios are dealing with right now, is that, at what point, I think even just with the explosion of like K content and all of that, like at what point does it just become a commodity where you actually aren't focused on the community, and you actually don't care about like the actual stories or the representation or whatever from that community, but you just know it's going to make you an extra dollar. And so it's a really fine line.
Thank you. It is a beyond fine line. And I love that because another layer of that is when you have these minority communities, there's a lot of us on the sidelines with original stories. So
Yeah.
you don't have to recycle, like you with the audacious adventures of Audrey Lee, right? That's an original story that you've created, that you're spotlighting,
Right.
a Korean American person that was adopted. Those are original stories. So sometimes you don't have to recycle from shows that's already been out there and be like, let's throw, a minority. And it's like, it doesn't feel authentic. I will say that. So I would say if they can lean more to the ones that are waiting in the wings with original stories as minorities. And I think that will help balance it out,
Yeah, I agree. I remember around the time of George Floyd's murder, I can't remember who said it, but um there was a celebrity that kind of spoke out just about people of color in general, and who are operating in creative spaces. Like, people of color need space to make bad art. Like, we need the ability to create stuff that isn't good. Like, we should be allowed to make a show.
Yes, because it's so much that isn't good.
Every film we make doesn't have to be a Get Out or a Black Panther or whatever. Like, allow people to try and fail, and there just really still isn't that space for people of color in particular within this industry. And so I think that's why you do see like, well, we'll just remake this, but like put a Black person in there instead of a blonde girl or whatever. And
I'm like, I think I read all of Anne Rice's stuff. I don't remember Interview with the Vampire. There's a Black lead in there in any of her books, and that was fine for me. So,
but
that's a whole nother episode.
There. It's changing. We're slowly getting there. I had a conversation recently where, we were talking about some of this stuff, and it's cool because we do have the ability to kind of step in and hopefully help change some of the conversations and the way stuff is done. So
And I think that is the excellent part. So when you make complaints, you always have to have resolutions as well. And that's something that I preach. And I feel like, thank you for saying that. It's like until we have more executives that look like ourselves in those rooms, it will be the, should we spend 50 million on that? Should we do, spend the money because you spent it in other places. If you like the story, don't overthink it. And if it's a flop or whatever, that's also fine. You will recoup on the other blockbuster that you have later this year. You know what I mean? So
Totally.
getting back to it, because guys, we're wrapping up Vonti talks with filmmakers, and we're here with Jenna Frank. Adding to that, like I mentioned before, segment producer, executive producer, and writer. What I would love to know from you, and I'd like to ask my guests that, if you could turn back the hands of time, would you do this all over again?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think if anything,
He was like, ooh.
I think if anything, I wish I would have found it sooner.
Aside from the writing music, you wish you would have.
Yeah. I wish I would have not had my emo songwriting phase and just like went straight to this, but obviously it's all part of the journey. But yeah, I there are many times that I wish I would have kind of stepped into this sooner. And I think that's really just because I do feel such a sense of, purpose in what I'm doing. And I don't know, they're like anyone else that I think works in a creative space, there are days where I feel like incredible imposter syndrome. But then there are days where I'm like sitting down to write and I'm like, oh man, I'm like really good at this. And so it's just like, it's just such like it's such a rewarding space to operate in. And it's something that I don't take lightly. It's a mandate that I try to carry well, because I do feel a sense of responsibility when it comes to whether it's my own stories or crafting other people's stories or even doing a rewrite on a script. Like it's not something that I take lightly. But it just,
Especially
it
as a writer,
so
oh my God.
fulfillment,
Yeah, especially you as a writer to then have to like edit somebody else's work that they're passionate about. I don't know about you, but when I hand over my writing, it's not like I'm overly sensitive, but I always have that. I hold on.
Yeah, I think because I worked at agencies and stuff for so long, I'm like pretty open-handed when it comes to my own creative. Like I'm like so happy to get people's notes. Will I take every single note on board? No, but like I'm more than happy to hear you out. All, for me, because for me at the end of the day, I just want it to be the best that it can be, and I want it to get made. So if that means I have to change stuff, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Constructive
But when it
feedback
comes
is
to other
always good.
people's work, I always try to like sit down with the writer and be like, okay, like what are your non-negotiables here? Like what are the things in this script that you feel like are like the heart and like the meat of this story that like just can't change? And then what's the stuff that's kind of like, well, I mean, if we changed this scene or if we lost that or if this moved locations, like it's not the end of the world. So I always really like have that conversation and see where their kind of boundary is, and then respect that as much as possible. There's obviously some things that are out of our control. If it's like a studio that's like you have to change X, then it's a different conversation. But yeah, I always try to be respectful of that, because I think otherwise then you do fall into that same trap of like it's the same person telling the stories instead of like different stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's like recycled content coming from the same person. I love that.
Yeah.
That you actually said that. So, guys, it has been amazing. We have had Jenna Frank in the building tonight, you guys, and it is Vonti Talks with Filmmakers. Jenna, I am wishing you so much well. Like I said, when I come to LA, I'm definitely coming to visit you, girl.
Yes.
I don't care. We can have a glass of wine. We can sit
ABDQ,
huh?
all you can eat Korean barbecue and
Girl,
karaoke.
of course we can. Ooh, that sounds amazing. When I tell you, I just got
I
really
know all the
hungry.
good spots. We'll go. It'll be great.
And we're going to sing in the car while we think about things.
We can maybe do that too. I don't know if I'm ready to share that with anyone.
I'll wave to the guys next to us like, hey, like we're crazy.
Fine. She's just crying, but she's fine.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Jenna, it has been an absolute pleasure. I really thank you for coming on. I know that you're a very busy person like everyone else is, especially now that the strike is done, but like I mentioned, I would love to have you back on once your show is wrapped and everything for the season, and we can discuss, what were your thoughts and how everything is going with you. But I'm sure you're going to be running around with a fanny pack somewhere.
Look for me in the background.
With a fanny pack, you guys. And look, it's going to be people viewing this that's like, oh, is she at the awards?
So embarrassing. It's fine.
I'm thankful that you were on, and I really hope to see you soon. Thank you
so much for having me. This was so fun.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
You've just tuned into an episode of Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us and sharing their knowledge. This has been a production of Vonti Pictures, hosted by me, Vonti McCrae, a screenwriter and producer. We'd also like to thank Bad Rabbit Pictures for the animated content and creator of upcoming podcast Age of Prophecy, along with our sponsor, redhawk.uk, with all episodes being edited by Jacob Daly, director, producer, and a man of many talents. Come back next week as this saga continues for the Conversations with Filmmakers podcast.